my thing is just don't be a douchebag, because I was that douchebag.
Power to Live More with Joe Dodds.
Welcome to the Power to Live More podcast, all about productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience. I'm Jo Dodds, and I started this show to enable interesting people to share their stories about how they use their power to live more, and by that I mean to do the stuff that they want to do more than the stuff that they need to or should do. It's about creating a life for yourself where you have the energy, health and space to be happy and fulfilled, spending your time as you'd like, whether that be at work, home or somewhere else entirely. That's your choice.
Hello. My name is Ellie Dodds, and I am co-presenter, and today Joe is interviewing Mohammed Elkhamissy. Because of his path, Mohammed views success as a means of helping others. He regards success and winning as a moral duty that enables people to help others. He believes that being humble makes you strong, and that being strong makes you happy. Mohammed's accomplishments came despite the fact that he is an average person, which means that by following his advice, anyone can achieve success. A firm believer in Stoicism philosophy, he truly strives to challenge people to think differently about what freedom and success mean. After generating $1 billion in sales while remaining true to himself, Mohammed is on a mission to teach people about the real meaning of success and freedom and how they can obtain them. He's an angel investor who's always on the lookout for worthy businesses to support and for partners to work with. He wants to share his personal story to inspire others to persevere despite obstacles. He also wants to share the tools that can help you reach his same level of success and beyond while maintaining a sense of freedom. Back to the studio.
Today I'm interviewing Mohammed Elkhamissy. Welcome, Mohammed. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So start by telling us who you are, what you do, and crucially, where you do it.
I'm currently based in Qatar. I run one of the, one of the top 5 construction companies in the region. We do about $600 million a year in sales. I moved here in 2014, moved from Atlanta with my wife and my 2 kids. Didn't expect to be here that long, but here I am and I'm just seeing where it takes me.
Aha. And so most of my interviewees at the moment are working from home. What's the situation over there? We're recording this in December. It won't be going live until April. Construction in the UK is outside of the rules. People have, well, not all of the rules. You still have to take care and be distanced and everything else, but construction has continued. What's the situation in Qatar?
It's pretty challenging because we have the World Cup, so we have some strategic projects coming up. So we really can't do it from home. So we try to rotate. We test a lot, but it's become a norm right now. So it's been going on for such a long time.
Yeah.
But we never stopped.
No.
So we just kept going.
Yes. Yeah. So much the same as over here in terms of the sort of construction side of things.
Right.
So how did you end up doing this? Is it something that was a dream? You're always going to be in construction when you were at school and so on, or is it? All...
No.
I knew you would say that.
No. Actually, see, I graduated in 2001. Actually, in September of 2001, right when the attacks happened in New York, and I was actually in Atlanta. Yeah. So I always tell the story. No one ever took my call. So it was useless. Like I can get an intern because that name was just like the worst thing that can ever happen to anyone at the time. Yeah. And so I had no choice but to try to do something. So I tried to do something on E-Trade. Back then it was called E-Trade, some stocks, and I lost my ass doing it. And so the only other thing to do was to get into construction, but only these small flipping type homes, like where you put 10,000 and 15,000 bucks. Uh-huh. And I started doing that. I still lost a lot of money doing that, but at least I got to meet people, which then gave me a chance to actually get an intern and But that's how it worked. But I just fell in love with it then.
Yes. Yeah. And again, not many people start working in an organization, get to be so senior and also move halfway across the world. How did all that happen?
Do you know, one thing that I really like, and this is why I'm doing this podcast, is I've always believed in the power of, I don't want to use the word networking, but just knowing people in general. So I was looking out with my daughter was sick for a while. It was very tough for 2 years in Atlanta, and we just needed to change the scene. And so I was looking for somewhere where I can fit in the middle, so I can be American, but I'm also Middle Eastern. And so this job just came up, and I kept pushing it. And I knew the people from the company. I went to school with them, and I kept forcing the issue for them to give me a shot on it. And then I started in a small, it's a group of companies. So they gave me a shot at the smaller company. And within 6 months, I was in the corporate company. That's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not that I'm special or anything. I'm average, and it's not that I hustle, but it's just the power of knowing people, trying to go out there and kind of force your luck kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. And so aside from what you're doing in your corporate role, you have some other sort of more altruistic, not more altruistic, your company might be altruistic in itself, but you have a female entrepreneurship fund. Tell us more about what that's all about.
It's about when my daughter was sick, I realized that the difference between my wife and myself. So I just realized how much of a beast she is compared to me. So I could whine about a dental appointment or a headache or a long day at work versus when she was going through, my daughter's cancer for 2 years.
Yeah.
And during the recession, which is, the real estate recession, it was in 2008, 2009, she didn't whine once. And so it hit me. I'm like, man, so she is really strong. She may not have my muscles, but she is really strong. And so I said the best thing to do is when I can afford it, with knowledge and a bit of capital. The one thing I want to do, especially on this side of the world, is I created this fund, which goes live next year, to help women entrepreneurs anywhere in the world, any ethnicity, anything, that just want to learn how to run businesses, for themselves. So that's so they call it angel investing because I've been doing angel investing for a while, but I don't want to call it anything cliche, but that's the actual cause.
And again, how did you sort of go through the process to do that? Because some people would be interested in creating, funds to help people and foundations and all that sort of stuff. But again, not everyone does that. And you have said already that you say that you're, did you use the word normal? Maybe.
Yeah, average.
Yeah, average. Sorry. Yeah. But you're doing sort of what would be seen as above average things. I mean, this is something that lots of people might want to do, but don't actually ever get around to doing. How did you know what to do, and how did you keep pushing through to make it happen?
By being practical and just being honest about what you're trying. So you don't need to compare yourself to a foundation. And I use the word fund, what I really mean is that if I can change, 20 or 30 women's lives through their businesses, I've achieved my target. If it becomes 30,000 women, I'm a happy man. So do you see what I mean? We put all these barriers because we're always comparing ourselves to what we see either in social media or TV. So it's easy. So forget if I took the word fund out of it and just said, here's some capital that I want to invest with women. Does it change the conversation? Yeah, it kind of dilutes it for some. But the reality is it's the same thing. If I put $10,000 with this person and sit on Zoom with her and teach her all the stuff that I know, it's the same thing if I call it a fund. So people put all these barriers for themselves to move.
Yes.
What I mean? That's the problem.
Yeah.
You just got to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And you've written a book. You've got a book. Tell us more about that.
Given where I grew up and given trying to be centralist and everything, I wrote a book about designing your life to be free. So I kept thinking about this a lot, especially with this pandemic.
Yeah.
So it's twofold. It's how to defining happiness and being free, and living life as an athlete. Let's talk about the athlete part because that's very important. If you live your life as an athlete that doesn't retire, what I mean by that is if you view a stadium of 100,000 people, fans, okay, some of them envy you, some of them hate you, some of them love you, some of them cheer you on, and list goes on, which you meet on your everyday, okay? And if you look at your opponent as every single thing that you have to do, like getting on this podcast, getting here on time, or working out or losing weight or lesson on drinking, all that are these opponents that you meet every day. Mm-hmm. And if you see your life as like you can train as much as you want and practice and do everything right, yet on game day, someone scores in the last second, or you actually get hurt, but you don't quit. You just keep going. And you don't play for one trophy, right? You just keep, no athlete just says, okay, I've won this, I'm done. Other than when we're talking about retiring for age. So I started building it like that, because I was an athlete. I thought I was going to be a soccer player.
Right.
And that was taken away from me, after college. And so I kept trying to, to stick to the principles of that throughout my life. So I don't accept losses, and I don't think about losses, or, to me, I just keep going. And the other part of designing it to be free is like, what really makes you happy? It's a very tough conversation. A lot of people run away from that. So is it just financial freedom only? Is it health, freedom, or mental freedom, religious? So many aspects of it. So in the book, I just asked these questions and how I tackled them myself.
Yes. Yeah.
Being so average again, I always want to hit that too. There's nothing special about me. No looks, height, nothing. No, I'm not even that wealthy. It's just I'm average in everything. So that's the conversation in the book I stress on a lot.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting talking about the living life as an athlete thing. I was listening to a podcast over the weekend, the Diary of a CEO, and Stephen Bartlett, the podcaster, was interviewing, I've just forgotten his name now, Joe Wicks, who you probably haven't heard of in Qatar, but he did live exercise classes on video every day of the lockdown for X number of days, and he's had millions and millions and millions of views, and he was quite successful already, but all of a sudden everything just went completely mad. And he was referring back to a podcast, I think this was the one it was on, where he was talking about somebody had interviewed Johnny Wilkinson, who is the rugby player, and who was talking about how if he'd spent the rest of his life relying on being like the best rugby player in the world, as soon as he wasn't playing professional rugby anymore, all of his meaning in his life would have gone.
Correct. And
I guess that's the difference between sort of focusing on having that position, if you like, or taking the learning and the philosophies and applying that. Because if you think about not being the athlete that was going to win something or be a professional athlete, and actually just take the principles and the habits,
right,
that's probably more useful for the longevity of your sort of attitude in life, I guess. Where did that come from for you, that you didn't just go, right, I was a footballer, I'm not anymore, move on, and you, instead of that, you kept those philosophies alive?
Throughout my, let's say from the age of 11 all the way up until 24, I viewed myself as an athlete, and I was treated as an athlete, and I played for a Division I team in the US. So I've always had that special treatment, and so that was a result of me being disciplined.
Yeah.
So when the game was taken away from me, I just missed the discipline part. It's so easy when it's defined. So if to lose 1 kilo, here's what you need to do. It's easy to think like that. So for me, it was easy to be an athlete. It's like, here's what I need to do. I'm not going to party. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to be the best at what I do.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm like, now in life, I'm like, there's a lot. I just missed it. So I still wanted to treat myself as an athlete, even though I was in the normal world.
Yeah.
And then it just grew with me. I'm like, okay, this is what discipline is. And that's what win is and what success and loss is. It's a cool way to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us more about what some of those sort of principles are that you live by, that you put down to having that sort of athlete perspective.
That you put in the work and the real work, not the work of you watching a YouTube video that motivates you and you don't do shit about it. So the real work. And that when you put in the work, it doesn't guarantee you any results. So when comes game day, you just accept that this game day. That's one of them, because that's a difficult one for people. People always want that insurance policy, right? If I do this, I get that, or if I go to this school, I should have that job, or if I look like this, I should have that. So that's one. The second thing is that setbacks are always going to be there. No matter what you try to do, you're going to get hurt somehow. You're gonna lose money. You're gonna lose someone. You're gonna lose a friend, or you're gonna get sick. Or you're gonna get married and get a divorce. But it's inevitable. So that the notion that you can set up yourself and have a shield to protect you from these setbacks, whatever you want to call them, is just ludicrous. But when they hit, it's how you treat them. So if you're out for 5 months, 6 months, if it's Achilles tendon, if it's ACL, you don't quit. You start rehab the next day. You don't feel sorry for yourself. You start rehab the next day. So the mindset is like, yep, it's part of it. It's part of the game. I'm hurt. Okay, but let's just keep going. Those are the two fundamental ones for me, I think.
Yes, yeah. And you talk about in your bio about having an intention for your life. And when I asked you for a few questions before we started, one of the phrases you used was choosing to live your life. And you mentioned that about your book as well. So clearly that intentionality is really important for you. Is that something that you've always had? And how was that affected when your daughter was ill?
When I found out about the cancer, I was doing really, really well. And I was very, very arrogant. I lived in a big house. I had a Hummer at a very young age, wore a big watch. I was just an obnoxious prick at that time. And when I got the call, it took me a couple of days to realize that, oh, there's nothing I can do about this. So I can't talk to someone. I can't be anywhere. It is what it is. And then when they told me it was uncurable, in the sense that we don't know, they call it an undifferentiated tumor. So they don't know what it is. So they have to try different courses.
Yeah.
And to battle that for 2 years and to somehow get lucky, because I got very lucky in the sense that the story is very simple. We had to do radiation. Radiation back then would basically annihilate anything in its way. So where's the tumor? It would kill the tumor, but it would also kill whatever organ was there. So they told us, we got the cancer under control, but she won't be able to walk. And that when you hear that, and I know there are parents listening to this, it's a very, very tough call. It's like it's a very, very hard thing to hear.
Yeah.
Especially with babies, because you can't tell them, you can't have the conversation. And so on my way out, someone said there's a guy down in Florida that does a different type of radiation. So we drove down, and she's with us today. Just the long story short, she's with us today. And so the intention part comes like, it's not that I was good. It's not that, but I was fortunate enough to be in the US at the time. I was fortunate enough that person was there. I was fortunate enough to be in Atlanta, close to Florida, where that went down to Florida. I was fortunate enough to be able to afford this stuff, even though I was self-employed with no insurance. But all this has to have a meaning behind it, right? So if I'm in a position right now to give back, that becomes my intention. And giving back is not a diluted term, like, I'm lucky, let's go for Christmas, give $10 here and 10. No, I'm talking about really giving back. This can't all just happen for no reason. You get it? So there's got to be and I'm not looking for the reason why it happened. I'm going to give back as much as I can till I can't.
Yeah.
So that's where my intention comes from, because the story, I can tell you the story in a very dramatic way, and I can bring tears to you and your audience, but it's an optimistic thing for me, because honestly, I was walking out. She said she's not good, and she was a really, really rude doctor, bad man. She just said she can't walk, so she hit us really hard. Like, I wanted to kill her at the time. And then when we walked out, this sweetest older nurse is like, go down to this guy. Here's his name. I don't even know how to get his number. And that's it. So that was, it's not, I don't think it's just luck. There's got to be something behind it. And that's what I'm trying to do right now.
So how, you mentioned that you were, I think you used the word obnoxious. You sort of had a different attitude before that happened, and clearly a very different attitude now. Can you articulate how that developed, how that changed? Can you see where that actually changed in the moment?
Yeah. See, 2008, 2009, remember, this is pre-Instagram world.
Yeah.
So when I say I was obnoxious, I'm like old school obnoxious, like real stuff, nothing is rented, no pictures, no one is seeing you. So for you to be seen, you have to actually be seen. There's no broadcasting method. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And at a young age, when you start to make a little bit of money and people are liking you, what happens is, like, you think you're invincible, right? So you think if you work out, you look half decent shape, and you got some money, you got the car, you got the house. So you get very, very. I got very arrogant. I didn't think of there could be a bad day. I thought even if there was a bad day, there's enough money or there's enough contact or network around the world that would save me. But then once it happened, this is when you realize it's like you don't have any control. You don't have it. You don't know what comes tomorrow, good or bad. And so it's easy for us to always assess it when things go bad, right? We tend to do that, right? If something goes bad, like why me or how did it happen? But when things are going well, you don't think about it. So I could sit and ask you, like, why did I meet that nurse that day on my way out? Why did I go to that specific hospital to meet that person? So that humbled me so much. And then I looked at myself then and I was like, dude, you're so average. You're so average. Your grades are average. You don't have a skill. You don't have a talent. You're not tall. You're not big. You're not strong. You're not fight. So I started seeing myself in not necessarily in a harsh way, but it's a real way. All that stuff is fake. And so to make up for the averageness, so you could maybe be good, maybe try to be nice, or I guess that's how I was processing when I was younger. But when I got older, I'm like, yeah, being average is cool. You can be average and still do big things. On social today, that you don't see that, right? You only see the most talented or the most brilliant minds in the world. That's what we're used to. We only read their books, but no one average is out there that you can think of on top of your head. Yeah, like he's the best athlete, the best coach, the best, software, whatever. It's just always the best. But the average people are just, like myself, somehow we just accepted the status quo that you're not going to do something big. So that's why I want to do this thing with the women's run. It's like, I want to do something big, and it's going to be frictional. And I want to do it as big as I can.
Yes. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And you almost will stand out because of, as you say, that sort of average bit. For exactly that reason you just said. That it's true. Isn't it true that whenever people publish a business book, they're always a best-selling author? Like every book must be best-selling. How can it be?
Everything. Right? Yeah. But 90% of the people, I don't want to give percentage, but how many people have just accepted the fact that because they view themselves as average, is that they're just going to accept a lesser of something, lesser of life or lesser of this. That's not right. I don't think that's right at all. I still do great things and be with great people. And, even your loved ones can be so special, even if you're average. You just, just that notion of, and being nice. How about winning when you're nice? How about the idea that for the past 10 years, we were only seeing like only the assholes win, right? So only these really rough, ruthless guys, whether it's on TV, whether it's in Silicon Valley, what do you see? You only see that one boss or that one guy. How about, no, screw that. How about not being obnoxious is cool, and not being a douchebag is great. Yeah. And you win and be nice. And you can still be evil. How about that for a notion? Yeah.
That could be your marketing strapline. Don't be a douchebag.
It is. I was just talking to someone earlier today. I had a different podcast in the morning, and that's what I said. I said, that's just my thing is just don't be a douchebag, because I was that douchebag. I was that oily just douchebag, just big time. The guy that drives in with a Hummer, make sure that it's so loud, make sure that he parks it wrong that everyone can see him. And then what gets out of the Hummer is every bit of 5.9. You're like, what the hell? Who's that midget coming out of the car? It's like, but to me back then it was different. Now I'm just completely the opposite. I'm completely, I'm just much more quiet.
Yeah. So tell us what your days look like. How do you do what you do? And how do you fit it all in?
So I wake up really early. I wake up at 5. And from 5, the first thing I do is I take a cold shower. And then I meditate. And I do some breathing work. So not too long. I do 10 minutes and 10 minutes. I don't turn on my phone at all. Don't look at any WhatsApps or emails anywhere until I've gone to work out. I go work out for an hour. I come back. I'm usually on intermittent fasting, so I don't eat in the morning. And then I do some journaling, 5 minutes. Sometimes there's nothing to write, but I just to get it out there. And then I just start writing my day. And what I mean by that is not my tasks. What do I want my day to look like? And then I have another book that I write in it, what's the most important thing I need to do today? And I stick to that, and I write the date that I need to do that. And then say about 8:39, I start turning on my phone when all these messages come in. But by then I've controlled the day. Then I go to work. I go have a late lunch at around 2. That's when I break my fast. And then I do a power nap in the office for like 10 minutes. And then I come back and I do it all again. I like to go out a lot. I like to work hard and go out at night a lot, but I like to go out early and sleep. But if given the option, I go out every day and meet people. That's my thing. I like to meet as many people as I can every single day.
So can I ask you about your power nap? I don't know how many people are in your office, but I'm intrigued as to how that works. Do you go and hide in a cupboard or something, or have you got one of those posh napping pods, or how does it work?
No. What I do is I face the window and I just put my earpiece in, and I just listen to white noise.
Yeah.
So I do have my feet up on something but I do actually get to actually sleep, and I have an Oura ring, so I make sure that it registers that I actually did take a nap. So that's honestly how it's not that difficult.
Yes. Yeah. I've never been very good at naps, even when I'm really tired. The only time I ever used to do it, I think I've said on the podcast before, was when I used to work in a national role. I used to drive a lot, and I think I've slept in the car parks of most of the service stations in the UK. I was quite good at it then, but not quite so good now, ironically. Oh dear. So what about? Sorry.
Go ahead. It's so important. Like that power nap could make up for so many coffees that you'd have. You know that down that you get after lunch.
Yeah.
If people try that power nap anywhere, just for 10 minutes, just to shut it, so refreshing. You don't wake up groggy.
Have you tried one of the coffee power naps? You probably wouldn't do that in the afternoon, I suppose, where you drink coffee before you nap, and then when you wake up, apparently you're even more. That's
correct, though. See, I don't do coffee in terms of liquid. I have a gazillion caffeine pills everywhere, like an addict. Like in my pocket, everywhere. So what I do, you're absolutely right. Before I nap, actually before I eat, so they actually kick in. I make sure, so I get the dose right. But I cut my caffeine at 4.
Yes, yeah. As a coffee lover, I'm quite traumatized that you're having your caffeine in capsule form.
only I'm at work, because I don't like to drive to a Starbucks or anything like that and wait in line. It's just I don't have that time to do that.
I think one of the advantages of working from home, the coffee machine's great. Although now my husband works from home since the beginning of the pandemic. Oh my God, the amount of coffee we have to buy every month is ridiculous. I think we should start charging his company for it. So what about technology? How do you use that in your life?
Non-existent.
Apart from your phone.
So everything's on my phone. My Kindle's on my phone. I read my books on my phone. The typical works like the email and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's it. I'm not really a gamer per se. But I don't really seek it that much. I like to be somewhat normal. I respect it so much and what it can do for humanity. But that's it. Just my phone.
And have you got particular apps that you use a lot?
I'm religious about Evernote.
Although hasn't it changed recently? I'm not loving it so much at the moment. I'm hoping they're going to develop it back out of the doldrums. Have you found the same, or is it just me?
No, it is. It just looks weird. Or feels weird. So Evernote, G Tasks. I've been on that forever. And then that's it. Yeah, that's it. Really. That's it. Anything to get me organized, and then obviously the Aura Ring app, Spotify. Yeah, that's it.
So tell us more about the Aura Ring. I saw it, I think, recommended by Dave Asprey, the bulletproof person, a long time ago, and then more recently it cropped up in my sort of peripheral knowledge of something when Prince Harry got one. But tell us about why it's really good. What it does. It obviously monitors your sleep.
Yeah, which is huge for me, right? So in terms of productivity, a lot of people don't respect sleep.
Uh-huh.
There's not enough data out there that you can see on a database. So I do have a Whoop, and I also have a Whoop that's on my wrist, WHOOP, and I do have an Aura ring as well. What they both do is that not only do they tell you about the sleep, they tell you how to stage your day. So in other words, if you had a rough night for whatever reason, it tells you that. And so if I wake up and I see myself in the Aura, the Whoop is colored. It says, it's red, yellow, or green. If I wake up in the red, I push back any important meetings. I don't work out that day. I make sure I sleep early. I take the day easy. The Aura gives you scores, but it's the same concept. So it measures your heart rate variability.
Yeah.
And your sleep. So that's so cool. To me, I wake up to it. But it's addictive in a way, because if you wake up in the red or you wake up down, but you feel great, you're like, but it says I'm down. Should I just be down? So it's addictive in that nature, because the first thing I do is when I wake up, I look at it.
You check it. Yes. Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I use Sleep Cycle to monitor my sleep, and on the odd occasion I haven't switched it on. I'm quite traumatized when I wake up in the morning and I can't tell how many hours of what quality sleep I've had. But I listened to a podcast once where the guy was saying, who needs those sleep monitoring things? I wake up and I know how I feel. And I sort of got what he was saying, but also understood that I don't think that is always the case, because exactly what you've said. Sometimes I wake up and I've had maybe not as much sleep as I thought I had, or it's been really good quality, but not quite as much, or whatever. And there's all these nuances. But the other side of it is exactly what you said, that if it says you should feel a bit rubbish, then, is it a bit psychosomatic and you do feel a bit rubbish, or do you anyway?
I tell you what I like about it. I tell you what, it's the habitual stuff.
Yes.
So for those that drink a lot at night, or drink even little at night, it will tell you that. So you try to push that up earlier, or try to lessen that. So I like that. So it's not. I don't see it as a score, just a score. I'm seeing, why am I like that? So did I go out last night? Is that why it's red? Or did I work out too hard? Or maybe I was stressed. It's the internal stuff with the heart that a lot of people are missing. That's why that heart rate variability is huge. That's why you hear about younger people with strokes and stuff, is because of the heart, the weakness of the heart.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's certainly true. Mine takes my pulse in the morning, and if I've had a drink the night before, it's normally higher. And sometimes if it's been a special occasion, it's substantially higher. And then I think, I shouldn't drink that.
Yeah.
As you say, it's probably that one of the Sleep Cycle things you're able to put in. You've had a stressful day, or you've eaten well, or you've drunk or not, or whatever. And I tend not to do that. But actually, as you say, it's that stuff that you start to see the patterns and make those decisions. I mean, I tend to use mine to firstly prove that I don't snore, and secondly, tell my husband and daughter off for waking me up in the morning, because it picks them up talking outside the door when she's about to go to school. So I can complain they wake me up and they deny it, and then I say, here's the evidence, even my phone heard you. But I'm not sure it's supposed to be for that, to be fair.
No, it's not. I can assure you it's not.
So what about working with other people, outsourcing or delegating, sharing tasks and so on? You've sounded like quite a lone wolf up to now, but you are working in an organization, so presumably you work with other people.
A lot of people, all the time. See, again, going back to this average thing, and I compensate for everything that I don't know, or I'm not A at. If I'm not an A+ at something, I always outsource. And we use the word outsource here. I don't mean necessarily just to outsource, but I find someone to compensate for that gap. Yeah. So that's why, I never win alone. I just can't. So that's why I'm always on this podcast. The same thing. I'm always striving to meet as many people as possible. They keep it so interesting for me, good or bad. I'm comfortable with that. I don't expect to meet angels all the time, but it's people to me, are, no matter what technology does, no matter what all these companies do, at the end, there is someone transacting with someone. So if you're buying on Amazon, people forget that, right? If you're buying on Amazon, you're drinking coffee, whatever it is, even if you're betting on a game, there's some human form. And so being on Zoom doesn't change the fact that I'm talking to you, right? You're there, you're physically there, and I'm here.
Yeah.
So we do exist. So that's what that's people forgot that. That's not going to go away ever.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned sort of Zoom and talking and so on. There's been so much publicity and talk over the time of the pandemic of how difficult it is to communicate online, and how not seeing people in person is an issue and everything else. And yet there's so many stories and reasons why that's the other way. I was talking to my previous guest earlier today, and she was talking about having attended a Tony Robbins event, and some of my members in my membership site were there, and they were telling me stories about he had thousands of people there for like 12 hours all on Zoom, and he had like whole walls of people's faces, and he'd like pick people out and say, Peter, what do you think, and things like that. And it's interesting that I suppose you can't replace face-to-face. That probably is a truth, but there's a lot you can do in these situations. We're in different countries, but we're having a really, in my view, interesting conversation, and connecting and all that sort of stuff. And we can't even see each other because I always do these interviews with the video off. And I find them really engaging and really very much about relationship building. And yet a lot of the narrative through the pandemic in the media has been how rubbish it is to communicate online and using Zoom and so on. I disagree. I don't know.
I completely disagree. The fact that you can meet more people, understand more people. By the way, meetings, whatever happened in meetings, the reality of it, like you go out there, you commute for an hour, you sit there for an hour, and what you actually get done is probably 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth? That's meetings are useless. All that business travel was a waste. All these, nothing really actually happened. All these silly conferences meant nothing. They're just like mandatory because that's just the way it is. It's like that old HR menu that we just have to have, right? It's like, but it's bad. This doesn't work.
Yeah.
What Zoom did, in my opinion, it put everyone on the spot. So you have to come to Zoom prepared. You have to actually exist. So you can't, you can go to a meeting hungover, but on Zoom, everyone's on the spot. And so especially when you have to turn the camera on, it's like, oh, he's right there, she's right there. We got, it's game day, So I think Zoom is awesome, and it's going to stay. I don't think anyone's going to want to go back to these conference rooms or do anything like that.
No. And I do think it's a bit sort of, horses for courses. And I'm always talking in terms of engagement and leadership around treating people as individuals. And some people really do value the face-to-face stuff. I'm a bit of an introvert, so I was really pleased that everyone came to me because I can stay at home and still see everybody all around the world. It's brilliant. But I know not everyone is like that, but it is interesting how the narrative seems to be, that it's all about being in person. And I don't think that is, as you say, true, and also not practical in lots of situations.
And honestly, like I used to travel a lot to look at deals and look at different investments. Now I'm looking at 4 or 5 a day.
Yeah.
So no, it's so much more efficient.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember talking about work and stuff. So I think that's where that people get that confused. I'm not talking about you having your girlfriend on Zoom where you have to see her and touch her and talk to her. That's different. But for work, you just want to get it done.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And the advantage, of course, was that everyone did it at the same time and there was no choice. So whether people wanted to or not, we were all able to do it. I mean, that's, as I say, my flippant comment about, everyone came to me, everyone did what I wanted them to do, which was meet online. That it was difficult to get that to happen in the past because of the expectations of meeting in person and thinking that was better and everything else. But of course, we were able to sort of practice all this for 9 months, or it might even be 12 months by the time this is published, with no real choice. And as you say, there's been so many opportunities that have come out of that. I mean, even just today, my daughter's working at home this week because it's Christmas, as you know, next week. And we didn't want her to be at school potentially exposed leading into Christmas in case we had to then isolate. So she's working from home, and they've got a Google Classroom. So nearly every class that she has, she can participate in from our kitchen table, which is, so amazing. And they wouldn't have been able to do that this time last year because there was no need, and they'd never done it before, and they didn't need to do it, sort of thing. It's interesting.
Yep, completely.
Yeah. So what about learning and improving as you go through your life? Your life has changed tons over the time. How do you keep learning and keep improving?
It's I love to learn. It's a challenge. So I learn all the time. Like I'm in that mode. I've always been in that mode. But I actually learned to I learned to do. So I don't learn just to I've learned this. No, I learned to do. So I'm always seeking out new information. So just whatever it is, new, whatever, and I call it information, and then we just learn from the information. And that's another thing technology is awesome about, and Zoom is awesome about.
Yes.
So it's so easy for me to get on a podcast or to get on a webinar and just learn something new, even if it's just communication skills. So that's a mandate of mine that I do every week. I check my journal to make sure, did you learn something new this week? It doesn't matter what it is. Whether it's about health or finances or anything. I just philosophy. I'm all about that.
Yes, yeah. I like that. Learn to do. The other one is just in time learning, isn't it? To take the logistics phrase and use that. So I always like that as well, as opposed to the old shelf learning where we used to buy it and stick it on the shelf and then never do anything with it.
Right now, I think it's I fear the amount of people that hide behind learning.
Yes.
So that people that go out there to get their masters because they don't want to face the real world, or they're learning this new language which just means nothing to them. So you've got to learn that something to better you, because if it betters you, you will succeed, and if you succeed, you will help others.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I do think learning often is procrastination. People often know enough to take action, but they don't, because they convince themselves that they don't know enough. And it's not about not knowing enough. It's about being insecure or not confident enough or not seeing the opportunity or whatever. So it can be a real procrastination tool, I think.
Yeah, it's a hiding tool, especially with these degrees, and it's all these certificates everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everyone hides, not everyone, but a lot of people hide behind them. Because apparently if you get that degree or that certificate and hide from the real world, when you get them, apparently the world is going to reward you so much.
Yes, yeah. So last couple of questions, Mohammed. Firstly, what about those days where it all goes horribly wrong? How do you deal with those?
When what? I'm sorry?
When it all goes horribly wrong, when you have a bad day, how do you deal with that?
The first thing I do, I've worked on this for a while now, but I can say it now because it's easier, but I'll work on my breathing. So I sit back and I realize that, okay, I sit and do all these breathing exercises, and then it calms me down. Then I just realize that it's just one day out of so many days, or it's one deal out of so many deals, or it's one bad person out of 7 billion people in the world. So you need that one thing. It's easy for me to say I just become optimistic at the end of the day, but it's not. I need that control mechanism, which is that breathing exercise. So I sit there and do all that breathing until I just calm down, and then I just acknowledge, oh, it's not that bad. Who cares? There's tomorrow. That's the thing, right? So it's so temporary. Everything is going to be so temporary. But we just have to exaggerate it. We just think it's the biggest thing, or the biggest deal, or the biggest divorce, or the biggest bankruptcy. We know what comes tomorrow, but that's never the case. That's what I've learned that, but it's easy for me to say it now at 43.
Yes.
That wasn't how I, thought of the bad days. Bad days were like, oh man, I'd be so dramatic. And, like music in the background dramatic, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, this is the end of days. This is it. I'm never going to come back from that.
Yes. Yeah.
Today I just lighthearted about it much more.
Yeah. I suppose you have to go through some of those days where you felt like it was the end of the world to realize the next day that it wasn't, as it turned out, the end of the world. And therefore you get more aware of that. And that's part of the thing about being older, isn't it, I guess?
I think if you're fortunate enough at a younger age to go through something difficult, So I don't think it's about age so much. I think if it's what you experience. And so those that put themselves out there are by default going to experience more things.
Yeah.
Those that are hiding, then the age thing matters. That you say, okay, I'm going to get to that at that age. So when I'm more mature, but you could be 18 and put yourself out there and have a really harsh lesson on finances or romance or whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that sort of building that resilience. I mean, through the pandemic, I've sort of talked quite a lot about the whole, living through the war in this country for 5 years and how awful it was and everything else. That built such a lot of resilience in that generation. And this will have done. I wouldn't say it's going to be the same, but it's got elements of the same in terms of building people's resilience for whatever is going to come next, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a dark place. It's definitely a dark place, and I acknowledge that. What's crazy about it is just the flu. And so for anyone out there, who's arrogant or thinks they're so cool, how about just the flu that brings the entire world to its knees? You got to think about that for a minute. It's just the flu. It's not a war. It's nothing. But it's just a flu, and we don't know what comes next. We're in lockdowns. Shops are closed. It's just you got to think about this. On that note, if you don't mind, I say if you're healthy today, or if you're just good in whatever shape or form, I think you should just think about it and say, this is so cool that I'm actually around, that I actually can do that. There is a tomorrow for me and for my loved ones. Because the amount of people that can't say that is so much. Yeah. We can hide from it, but it's just so much. They're in the millions, not thousands, millions.
Yeah.
That's a scary thought, but just for those, I think we should be more optimistic.
Yes. Yeah. And who knows, when this goes out in April, we might be in a different place, she said optimistically.
We have no choice.
No. Yeah.
Really. Your whole view of everything in life should be very different after that. This is not one of those things that you say, oh, we forgot about that. No, you're not going to forget about that.
No.
You can't forget 2020. You can pretend to write it off, but you're scarred for life.
Yeah. We will be telling our grandchildren about it. So, last question then. What about those days where you get to live more? And that's where I describe as getting to do more of the things that you want to do and less of the stuff that you don't want to do. What do those days look like for you?
I never credit myself for those days. Oh, I never credit when those days happen. I acknowledge them and I never credit them for myself. I never say this happened because I worked hard at this or I did this right. I'm just so appreciative of whatever reason that day's happening. And so I've got so much more gratitude for that day. And I just sit and just analyze every minute of it, of how cool that day was or how cool this event was on that day. And I just always say, it's not because of me. It's because of something else.
And yet you are building an intentional life.
Yes.
So how do you reconcile those two things? So you're making choices all the time and trying to make good choices, and then good things happen. How do you then reconcile saying it's just, it wasn't me sort of thing? Challenging question, that is.
Because see, we talked about that in the beginning. It's like, because see, it goes back to the thing I said in the beginning. I work so hard at something, and let's just call it the intentional life.
Yeah.
If we all knew that working at that one thing resulted in this, then there would be no failure, right? So on my end, I'm like, there are a million people, gazillion people that are working just as hard or are better than me at this thing, or. And so when the good thing happens, I just want to stay humble. I don't want to be like the version of myself when I was young. So that's why I don't credit myself at all for it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this conversation we have, I don't know what happens after. I don't know who calls me or who reaches out to me, but maybe it's the best thing that ever happens to me. Just, so I walk into the podcast thinking that, but it's not because we rehearsed it or because I'm so good or so eloquent or such a good storyteller. It's just maybe there's that one person that's going to change my life listening on the other line who's going to email me tomorrow or text me tomorrow. Right. So it's just pulling at both ends, if that makes sense to you.
Yes. Yeah.
Got to be intentional, yes, but trying to control the results or expecting the results is ludicrous, especially after the pandemic.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So it's been really interesting talking to you today, Mohammed. Tell people how they can find out more about you and get in touch.
Well, on the show, with show notes, I'll send you the website. At the best place to work, and from there, everything's on that. I'll send you that website right now.
Brilliant. I have it. It'll be on the show notes. That's excellent. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All this information is available in the show notes. If you go to powertolivemore.com / in this case 205, then you'll find them there. And this week I'd like to talk to you about accountability. It's my topic for the week within the fundamental for the month, which is share. So accountability for me is at a number of levels. The first is about self-accountability. So what do you commit to yourself, and how do you ensure that you achieve those things and stay accountable to yourself? And how do you do that? So I use Todoist as my to-do list, and I use it quite extensively to plan what I'm going to do and to review what I've done and what I haven't done, and to sort of think about how I can do things better and on time and more effectively and efficiently and all that sort of stuff in future. So there's that self-accountability piece. Then it's about accountability on a one-to-one basis with somebody else, and that might be a friend or a business colleague, or it might be a mentor or a coach. So how do you use that relationship to keep you accountable? And then there's group accountability, so maybe as part of a coaching group or something like my membership site, where there's a community and we have regular calls and people share what they're going to do and come back and report on whether they've done that or not. And then there's things like group programs and group coaching and that sort of thing as well. So that group accountability. And then there's generally that whole thing about external accountability, by saying publicly that you're going to do something and then in effect holding yourself accountable to what you've committed to, because you know that there's a whole load of people out there waiting for whatever it is you said you were going to do. I think that all of us can benefit from accountability in some shape or form, and part of what we need to do is work out what works best for us. As I've said, it might be personal accountability. It might be that you need one other person to hold you accountable. It might be that you need to do things in public so that people can see, and then that keeps you accountable, or maybe it's in a group scenario. So my question to you for this week is, how are you keeping yourself accountable, or how are you finding other people to keep you accountable? If you need one-to-one accountability or group accountability or public accountability, any of those, then you might be interested in my Power to Live More Calm membership. One of the 4 areas of calm is accountability. So it's something that we do specifically focus on in all sorts of ways to account for people having different styles and different tendencies. So if you're looking for some ways to keep you accountable, then it might be worth looking at powertolivemore.com /get calm. Or if you'd like to have a chat, then go to powertolivemore.com /calm call, and we can have a conversation to see how I might be able to help you and how I might be able to keep you accountable. Again, this week's show notes are at powertolivemore.com /205, and we look forward to speaking to you next week.
Use your power to live more.